Uh, our next speaker is Dr. Tirumalesh, who's going to be delving on post-op endophthalmitis, which is definitely going to interest us all. He's a leading vitreoretina surgeon with special interests in minimally invasive vitreous surgeries and complex retinal procedures from Narayan Nethralaya, Bangalore. On to you, Dr. Tirumalesh. You could share.
Thank you. I hope my slides are visible.
Yes. Go into the slide shade, Thiru. Yeah. See.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, Dr. Srinivas, Dr. Yes, I'll be talking about post-operative endophthalmitis, and the topic that was given to me was how I manage. So why I put up these slides was that, this is how endo would present, and microbiology plays a very important role in how we go ahead with treatment. So the initial part is making the diagnosis. As we all know, endo by definition is an inflammatory process which is secondary to an exogenous infection entering the eye, most commonly in the postoperative period. So it commonly presents with circumciliary congestion. There will be some amount of media haze. Patient comes with pain, blurring of vision, hypopyon, or AC reaction, and lid edema. And it's by no conjuncture that these were also the mentioned signs and symptoms in the EVS, the circumciliary congestion being the most common at 92%, followed by media haze. And pain, lid edema were seen in 30% and about 12% respectively. So once we arrive at a diagnosis of endo, one other thing that you should consider that, whether this particular patient has an infective etiology, or is it a TARS, or is it postoperative reaction. So the concept of postoperative reaction is if the pupil is stretching or there was a lot of iris prolapse, then directly you know that you have manipulated. So some amount of inflammation is something that you would expect. But however, in an uneventful surgery, if this is the picture, then you should consider either endo or TARS. So how do we differentiate? TARS is, as the name indicates, it is an anterior segment shock syndrome. So most commonly it is seen on post-op day 1. However, endo is seen after 4 to 5 days. Congestion is usually not there. Congestion is the most commonly seen sign in endo. Pain is usually absent. Endo is usually painful. Corneal edema is diffuse from end to end, white to corneal, white to white. However, patchy corneal edema is a characteristic feature that you see in endophthalmitis. So how to differentiate with the more certainty whether it is TARS or endo is that you do an ultrasound. When there was an anterior segment reaction and you see this kind of picture on the ultrasound, it means that you are dealing with postoperative endophthalmitis. Now, what is next is after you have documented all these signs, either through a clinical picture or a very good fundus drawing, because it's, these are the patients who will require follow-ups, and also prognosis is not going to be too good. Second thing is do a ultrasound examination serially, which can be required. So the first one should be documented and, stored in the file. Second thing is you discuss the treatment option to the patient that, initially we will try and manage with injection. If required, surgery may be required. And at every step, which will be guided by microbiology samples. Why I'm stressing on microbiology samples is because it will deal with what kind of antibiotics we are going to give with. So when the vision is counting fingers or better, so my initial plan will be, I will plan in intravitreal antibiotics. Usually antibacterial is the one that I would consider. However, because we have an in-house lab and we can process the sample within 5 to 10 minutes, what I do is I give a block to the patient and I take a insulin syringe with 26 gauge needle with the piston out. I do an AC tap and I send it to the lab. So in the meanwhile, the lab will tell me whether, by doing a gram stain and KOH, whether it is bacterial or not. Usually, within a few minutes, we are notified. If they find that it was, a gram positive or a gram negative cocci, or gram negative bacilli, and considering that it is a bacterial this thing, so I would probably inject ceftazidime 2.25 mg along with vancomycin and DEXA. If the gram stain does not yield any info, I would still go ahead with injection of ceftazidime and vancomycin. I would omit DEXA, and the patient is reassessed within 48 hours. If it is worsening, then vitrectomy is something that I would consider. However, these are the reports that usually our lab sends us a message immediately when we send them. If you see that there is gram-positive cocci or polymorphs, it literally confirms that it is bacterial. However, gram stain also can detect, fungal yeast like this thing, and also hyphae like you see in the second picture. However, KOH and calculaphore will, combined staining will, increase your detection rate of fungal hyphae, as you can see. So what I would do if I don't get this, before I inject, I usually use a 24 gauge needle and take a vitreous sample and I send that for culture and also for PCR. So why did we choose ceftazidime and vancomycin is not just along with the EVS trial, but also recent cultures of, quarterly when we keep a note of that. And you can see that ceftazidime shows about 70% sensitivity for gram-positive cocci and gram-negative bacilli. And if you combine that with vancomycin, which has a 50% coverage, then you are almost including majority of the spectrum of the bacteria. Another important thing is, if you consider piperacillin and tazobactam, which can be injected at 2.25 milligram per 0.1 ml, it seems to have a very, very broad coverage. And this has been worked upon by the LVPI group also. However, if the microbiology, report says that, we could see fungi or, hyphae on the KOH and also on the grams, then I would switch over and I would probably use voriconazole, which is 100 micrograms per 0.1 ml, which is injected. And before injection, like I told you, I would also use a 24 gauge needle and send it for culture for further confirmation of the microbiology. If the microbiologist is very sure that, it is Candida, where you can see gram positive, yeast, which usually turn gram positive, then I would probably switch and consider using amphotericin B at 5 microgram per 0.1 ml. And I usually omit injecting Cefta, Dexa, or Vanco because I know that it is fungal end of. However, if both have been, negative on the anterior chamber examination, then probably I will go ahead by only giving antibacterial in the first one. If the patient's presenting visual acuity is hand movements, closed face, or if the patient is only PL plus, then I would usually consider doing a vitrectomy. So how would I proceed is, I usually put an infusion port. There is a 6 mm 23 gauge port which is available in the trocar cannula. I use direct perpendicular entry at 3 millimeters, considering the patient is post-operative, maybe usually has a good pseudophakic, and you are in the pars plana as well. After putting this cannula, I usually take a sample from the aqueous. I also remove the membranes over the IOL, and I immediately send it for microbiology. And I also use the other port before switching on the infusion. I collect about 200 microliter of aqueous and send all three together for microbiological examination. By the time I do vitrectomy, I usually get a report. So usually I do a core vitrectomy. Vitreous I will debulk as much as possible. I never attempt a PVD when I'm doing vitrectomy in an end of. Once the retina is fairly visible and I have adequately debulked the vitreous, I do a partial fluid air exchange and inject antibiotics. However, if the underlying retina appears a little necrotic, or you see that there is retinal edema, then I usually inject silicone oil because I want to be a little more safe, on the safer side, because it will help me evaluate the retina in the postoperative period. Then I switch over to the postoperative antibiotic and steroids which are initiated, and I keep the patient on a close follow-up. Now, end of vitrectomy study is the most important study, which, in spite of two decades, being 2 decades old, is still the one which guides us in treatment. This was an investigator-initiated trial which had taken 420 patients across 25 centers in the US, and they had randomized into 4 groups. So all patients, although received in intravitreal antibiotics, there was one group where vitrectomy with systemic IV steroids and intravitreal antibiotics was given. There was one group where vitrectomy with only intravitreal antibiotics was given. There was a group where vitreous tap was done with antibiotics, and the 4th group where vitreous tap was done with intravitreal antibiotics and also IV antibiotics. So the intravitreal antibiotics that they chose was amikacin at 0.4 mg and vancomycin at 1 mg, which we also currently use. What were the intravenous drugs that they used for 5 to 10 days in the 2 groups that they were randomized? Was that they used IV antibiotic, which was ceftazidime, which was 2 gram every 8th hourly. And whenever the patient was sensitive, they switched over to ciprofloxacin 75 mg, which was given twice orally. The second systemic drug which was used in the US trial was amikacin. So you can see that amikacin was given at 7.5 mg as an initial dose, and they were monitored by serum levels because amikacin can be known to be a toxic drug. So what did the EVS tell? Was that with reference to media clarity, a significant greater percentage of patients in the WIT group actually had better media, which was 86 versus 75%. However, if you look at long-term follow-ups, the difference was not very significant. That even the vitrectomy patients had 90% clear media. However, the tap and inject group had 83. Systemic antibiotics, whether it was ceftazidime, amikacin, or ciprofloxacin, they did not have any bearing on the final outcome. There was also more rapid clearing of the media in the WIT group, although it was not associated with concomitant rapid improvement in visual acuity, which means that clearance of media does not mean the patient is also going to get excellent vision. So continuing with the EVS recommendations are these, that it strongly supports the use of vitrectomy after cataract surgery only in the patients who has PL vision. If the patient is having any kind of counting finger vision, those should be considered to give intravitreal antibiotics. The study also found no advantage in performing immediate vitrectomy. I'll finish in 30 seconds. However, vitrectomy was valuable in patients where severe visual loss was halved. You can see that in 15% in the TAB group had severe visual loss. However, only 8% in the VIT group had better vision. So how does it translate? Is that whenever you get a one-eyed patient, probably it is better to do a vitrectomy at the initial. This is a small video of 30 seconds. So whenever you get a patient in the post-operative period, like you see that if this patient had undergone a K-Pro, where you cannot monitor anterior segment signs, and usually K-Pro is done in one-eyed patients. So these are the patients who you would like to directly take up for vitrectomy. So once you clear off the retroprosthetic membranes, so you can see that there is a lot of vitreous exudation which is there. So I usually do a vitrectomy where I only do a debulking. I never use any pull technique. So once you start debulking and the retina is relatively seen, you can just trim the vitreous. Even in small pupils also, with the current visualizing system, you can see most of the peripheral vitreous. So once this is done, you can either decide on doing a partial FGE and putting an antibiotic. If the retina is bad, then one would probably want to inject silicone oil. So that was my time. Thank you very much.
Very good, wonderful presentation. It was really enjoyable and learned a lot again and again. There were many questions in my mind. Everything got cleared up. So one last stupid question I have is there, that means there's no role of systemic antibiotic, or in a very virulent case, would you think of giving an antibiotic which is same as what?
Actually, if you look at many retinologists, my mentors also used to use systemic antibiotics. Many people thought that ciprofloxacin or usage of Dr. T.P. Das has a publication where they say that usage of fluoroquinolones has raised the intravitreal concentration to MIC levels of more than 50%. But however, the EVS had given the same dosage. Ciprofloxacin was used at 750 milligram on a BT dosage, but they did not find any improvement. So if you are looking at evidence-based, 2 decades ago, they proved that they don't have any role.
I think the important thing is that if you're giving intravitreal antibiotics, then the intravenous antibiotic does not add to the levels. But if you're not giving intravitreal antibiotics, that's not so. That's number one. The second thing is that if you're putting silicone oil inside the eye, then the levels will change. Then this thing does not apply. EVS is only applicable to eyes which have had a conventional vitrectomy. In eyes which have had silicone oil with injection with vitrectomy, we found that the levels double. They become almost parallel to the systemic levels that you get. So in those cases, there is a huge difference. That paper is published in IOVS.
A quick question to Muralidhar sir, and then we can go on to the next talk. Sir, in case of these endophthalmitis with silicone oil, which Tirumalesh has nicely mentioned, and he has elaborately told about the steps, what he does. In silicone oil, do you decrease the dosage of these antibiotic injections, or in which cases do you prefer using silicone oil? And what's your dosage of the antibiotics when you use silicone oil for endophthalmitis?
I prefer to use silicone oil in severe ENDOF, especially post-traumatic ENDOF, where there is a lot of vitreous change and possible retinal detachment. In those situations where the retina appears necrotic, as Tirumalesh said, I would prefer to use silicone oil. And regard to the antibiotics, generally I use half dose of the dose that we normally use in a non-silicone filled eye. So that means if you are using 1 milligram vancomycin, I use half of that dose. Generally ceftazidime or vancomycin, I would use half dose in a silicone filled eye.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Thiru.